Ooh, welcome back to another episode of Cat and the Mat. Oh, yeah.
Ooh la la. Hi, everybody.
That's my rapping for tonight.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you see these comments now, like I just see one just now saying like so and so stock is effed, bleeding out after hours. They're all bleeding after hours. Like
Yeah.
why do you single out any particular stock at this point? I mean, yeah, it's pretty brutal times, yeah. Yeah, you would say.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the after hours price action, yeah, it's down another 1.5%. The SPY, that's pretty brutal for after hours action.
Yeah.
So hang on to your pants there. Hang on to everything if you wear them.
I mean, yesterday was really green after hours, which is makes you wonder. But yeah, rough times out there. Sure. Yeah.
I just I don't know what to take of it. Like, I see comments now like, has Bitcoin topped? Has everything topped? Is everything going to crash? And my only response is, even in the worst bear markets, they don't really start this way because they don't go straight down, right? Usually things that go straight down for the first couple of months, they have a mean reversion back to resistance. Like there should be at least price coming back up to like the 520s, 540s. And then decide if it's going to roll over or not. Like, this is basically how bear markets work almost all the time, right? We can see that the majority of the time. So that's my thoughts on this. What about you, Kat?
I think it's pretty viciously down. I don't think we've seen the mean reversion that we generally would see. There just hasn't really been any. So it seems like a pretty big giant flush out of proportion, and all of these are actually based on speculation, if anything. Like, it's kind of crazy. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say. I just think that we haven't had the mean reversion yet, and I think it's more important to wait for the mean reversion. I think selling down here risk reward ratio is not very good, and I think minimally to see how it reacts when it retraces back to the mean is going to be more meaningful, So
yeah, I agree. Reversion to the mean makes it more meaningful. I agree completely.
Boy, there you go.
Let's just get started then with the SPY and stuff. And my take on everything right now is the QQQ. I'll do this one first, just because the QQQ, it went back to its 221 high, right? It did cut through it already, and actually it's right there again post-market. It's right at that previous high back in 2021. This is a monthly chart too, by the way, and it's there. But the SPY, it never got there, and it really now has the opportunity, right? It has the chance to do it finally, and that's around 479, and the previous high was here, like 479.98, right? So we can see that, and after hours, it is 488. So just has like, what, $10 more to go to touch it and do exactly what the QQQ was already doing. So this is my thoughts on that. These are monthly charts again, and they both are still maintaining around the baseline as well. And that baseline is kind of around 496.94. And I think for the QQQ, it's right around 413. So we're right in a major high time frame support zone regardless. So yeah, panicking at this zone where it's a previous 2021 high for both of these is something I don't think is really smart. And usually when you get to the monthly baseline, you see some kind of reaction of support down there as well. And that's something that we still can see later on. But it doesn't mean we can't go lower first. But later on in the month, I think we still have 21 days left. It can recover nicely. So perhaps there will be more pain. Perhaps SPY just fell short of the 2021 high. So that's why we're selling off right now in the afters. And the IWM, it's just pain city. And guess where it's going? Right down to the monthly cloud right there. That's around 170. We're almost there, the bottom of the cloud. Last time it got there, it bounced pretty nicely, right? And last time it got there, it was also the 100-month moving average, but now we're underneath that. But again, we still have 21 days left in the month, so it could go down further, and then we could have a sharp recovery at the end of the month to close back above levels to negate all of that stuff. So nothing is completely dead now. I would argue that giving up now is something that probably will be regrettable in the future, because some of these things are looking like they really have the potential to actually be near the bottom. I know we've been saying that a while, even back up here at 465. I was like, it's probably going to be a good support, but no, it didn't. Just one monthly candle. I think this is one of the largest monthly candles in a while, especially for the SPY. We haven't really seen a down 62-point candle so far, right? That's been a while. But yeah, I would argue we're really, really, really at a point where, even though if price goes lower, I think giving up here now would be regrettable, because a mean reversion back up here, at least 520s, at least 540Q would be possible. Then it'll probably spend some time around there trying to get people to wonder what's going on, if it's going to go higher or if it's going to collapse, right? So I think if you're waiting for exiting the market, it might be smarter to wait for a mean reversion, because that will decide if it's going to continue or get rejected.
Yeah, we're just so far stretched onto the downside. I think we expect minimally a little bit of mean reversion back up to see how it reacts. Whenever it flushes down this quickly, and this is a lot quicker than the 2022 bear market. This is just a big giant flush all the way down, very, very much in a hurry. The last bear market was 2022, and it took about like a whole year to get down to about like 27%. And right now we're already pretty close. I think we're like about like 22% or something like that. So it's a huge flush all the way down. It's not really like a drawn out, like, brutal bear market like what people experienced back in 2022. And considering like Bitcoin's actually holding pretty well. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but it's just considering it actually is holding pretty well. So it does make you wonder, hey, like what the heck is going on?
Bitcoin is still holding well. Like a lot of altcoins, they're not even close to where they were Sunday night, Monday morning. So that's interesting right there. One thing I wanted to point out though is, like 2022, it was a slow death, right? It started with 5% on a monthly candle, then a 2%, 3%, then it was green, then it was down 8%. Here we're like, bam, 6% down. Now we're 12% down. And you know what? It reminds me of COVID, because we had here a 7.9% down, then a 13% down, and then a sharp recovery. So we're basically the same numbers. After hours, down 11%. It's down 1.5 after hours. So yeah, it is down 13% after hours. And not only that, like we had a wick on COVID. The total length of that wick from top to bottom was down 30% in 1 month. So we could go down a little bit further and still recover, right? There is that 50-month moving average down there, which is 464, which could be a lot more pain. But right now, this is reminding me a lot more like COVID, because whenever you get 2 steep months in a row, there's a recovery, right? Even like right here, this monthly candle was down 9%, pretty big, but there was a recovery. And then we had one back here that was down 6%, and right here, 2, 4, those were like just miniature declines. But usually when you get something fast and steep, like they're 11, down 5%, then down 7%, then a recovery. Usually if it's like a long drawn out bear market, it's usually slower and not so catastrophic like we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I think it's I think we're having the quick like flush, and it's happening very much in a hurry. Usually these kind of things have a little bit of better chance of rubber banding up just based on history over the last 20-25 years, but we'll see. There's no guarantee. Anything else you want to show on your chart, man?
No, go ahead. I'll switch over to you.
Yeah. I mean, we might as well look at ES futures, right? I mean, now that we're
the ES futures, those are more exciting.
Yeah, those are absolutely more exciting, as it captures the the after hours price action. So honestly, I want to just point out, from the bear market that ended October 2022, that was the bottom, and all the way to the recent top over here. If you do a Fibonacci sequence, you can see that we, on the futures here, actually hit the 0.5 like almost perfectly on the log scale. On sorry, there's the linear scale. On the log scale, it hits like the 0.618. It's a little bit dipping underneath of that. But regardless, these are some, pretty important FIB levels over here. QQQ is doing the same thing, on the linear scale is also hitting like the 0.5 almost perfectly, right? So let's try to like maybe back test over some of these other previous crashes over here and see how they usually go. I mean, I could start with the 2022 crash over here, and what I could do is I could just go from here as the top and go all the way down to the COVID low, right? You can see how the crash basically ended right around 0.5 over here on S&P 500 futures. And on the Nasdaq here, you can also see if I do that, then the Nasdaq bear market ended around the 0.382, right? So you can see how these FIB levels actually do mean something here. We can even go back to maybe another crash over here in 2018 to do a little bit of a back test here. Maybe to this bottom over here, which is a pretty significant bottom in February 2016. You can see how the retracement from the crash of late 2018, it also ended right around 0.5, right? So we're not like making anything up here. These FIB levels, there are some algorithms that actually do follow these things maybe. If you do the FIB level for COVID, I mean, from compared to the 2018 bottom over here, it did hit like the 0.236. So I mean, there's no guarantee it can go down a lot lower. Yeah, it can. I mean, anything is possible. And if you do that from 2016 bottom over here from the top there, it also hit 0.5 like perfectly, right? So it just seems like these numbers are pretty important. And right now, I just want to remind you, right now we are seeing, actually I should probably use that wick over there. We're seeing that 0.5 is hitting almost perfectly, from the recent top to the last bear market bottom. I'm not making this stuff up. It doesn't mean that this is the level where it's going to hold. It could always flush down a lot further. Who knows what this thing is going to do, right? Once it starts something that vicious, who knows how far it's going to go down. But all I have to do, I have to say right now is it's just way too far outstretched away from the Bollinger Band. Like this is just not really that sustainable. I think at some point I would expect to have some kind of mean, reversion of some kind. It would probably hit some of the levels back up above. If you're looking at the mean reversion, it's hard to say. I would like to usually see that it basically just slices through the 20-month like it's nothing right now, which is just kind of insane. Last couple of times where it did that, like it basically just bounces very, very easily unless if it hits the low Bollinger Band, right? And the last couple of these, flash crashes didn't really hit the low Bollinger Band, so I don't think the low Bollinger Band necessarily has to hit. But yeah, that's just the anatomy of what the market is doing right now. I think it's respecting some pretty important FIB levels, like it did from previous crashes, and we're just gonna have to see whether or not they end up holding. I think the sentiment right now is just extremely horrible. I don't know what else to say about it. IWM has been absolutely hammered, right? Like it's not even respecting any of its FIB levels over here. I mean, the thing about IWM is just whenever you have these crashes, they just crash disproportionately a lot more. Just like COVID crashes disproportionately a lot more. Even around 2015, 2016 crashes disproportionately more. So it's not surprising now that the indexes are crashing more than like 20-25% for IWM to do that. It's getting kind of close to a low Bollinger Band here. Does it have to hit? Maybe. I think Matt was saying that it's getting close to the lower, lower part of the Ishimoku cloud here. So I think the risk reward ratio is skewing maybe towards reward. With that said, does it have lower to go? Maybe. I mean, after hours, it's trying to form some new new lows over here beyond that wick, right? So it looks like it does probably want to hit the bottom of the cloud over here. And we'll see how it reacts. Is the bottom of the cloud magic? No, not necessarily, although it kind of hit that perfectly on the top of the cloud here around October 2011. And over here around January 2016, it hit the top of the cloud here almost perfectly, right? It just serviced a couple of wicks over here. So, yeah, who knows? But that's the reality that we're dealing with here. It's just a flash crash, and it's really, really, really vicious. And it's just the risk reward right now is skewed towards reward, if you will, right? I would say this area over here is probably not a good area to sell. I would probably, at least, if you really want to exit the market, at least minimally wait for a little bit of a mean reversion, back up to a negative sloping moving average, and then see how it reacts. If it doesn't push through, then yeah, you should sell. A perfect example of what people do, which is not a very, very smart thing, was like recently there's this stock here that last year it really was gathering a lot of attention. Now everybody thinks it's trash, which I'm not disagreeing with right now. But a lot of people, when SMCI went from like 128 all the way down to like the teens, I was like, you're gonna have a little bit of mean reversion, right? So even if this is like a stock that's entering its bear market, and it very well could be, you would expect it to, at least within like a couple months or so, have a little bit of mean reversion, right? So the time to sell is not down here. Time to sell is really for it to kind of reverse back to the mean here in the 40s, or even when it like went all the way up here to the 60s, right? So I just think that whenever rubber band is being stretched so far down to the downside, and you can see how far down it is stretched down to the downside, the time to sell is probably not in the teens. Time to sell is probably wait for these kind of retracement to do that at. So I think the same thing is happening with the indexes, and none of this is advice for you to do whatever. You can do whatever the heck you want to do, but that's kind of my 2 cents. So. All right, Matt. I talked for too long, man.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to show some GAN levels for just like the SPX and the IXIC, the NASDAQ Composite, and the Russell 2000. So we'll get a bigger picture of it right here. Let me pull it up. All right. So I'm going to show you. Oh, I forgot to switch it. So yeah, I have this chart pulled up since the 1929 crash down to 1932, and I think I've showed this before. But one thing I want to pay attention to is the levels here. So ever since then, we'll look at the orange level. It was a resistance, right? And then it came down, broke out, and then went to the next level right here. It did a breakout and a back test of the blue level, and then it took off. And then right here, it was a breakout and a back test, and then another back test during the 2009 financial crisis. Just a big liquidity grab underneath it. Actually went quite a bit underneath it, but it recovered, right? So 2 back tests here, and I want to show you where we're at right now. We're right there. So we are at a GAN level that can hold, right? But again, this top, I think this is why we're seeing QQ hit its 2021 levels already, because SPX never touched its GAN level as resistance. So I think that's why it's a little bit skewed. So we're going to see maybe price go down there, maybe to the 4,780s or so, maybe retest that as a support. And then maybe by the end of the month, we'll probably close back above this level. And that level is around 49.65. And this is a pretty important level. So I think we're at a juncture that can hold. But again, since it never got hit at resistance there, I think the possibility to go a little bit lower first is there. And with the IXE, we can see that the net composite is going back to an arc, right? It also did the levels the same, right? Back test of the blue level twice, back test of the green level there, and now it's making its way up here. So I think it is probably going to end around 29, 30,000, right? But we need to back test the arc first, and we never really did it except for just a tiny bit back here in 2024 of April. So we're at a point now where after hours is getting to that point, right? Maybe a little bit lower, but it's already back tested the 2021 highs right here. But the month is still young, so I think it could go down, and it wants to retest that arc there, which is around 14,500, right around there. But after that back test, I think we can stabilize, and I think we still have the potential to continue our journey to the next level, right? That's been the history. That's been the trend of all these charts. And this IXIC, this NASDAQ composite, is from 1974, right? And we can see every single level has been respected, and the angles have been respected, and everything like that. So I am looking for this zone to hold. And then when we go to the Russell 2000, this one is just a lot deeper than I thought it would go, right? It's even going way below this blue GAN level, but that's 1900. So we can see that, yeah, it did it before, where actually it flipped it to resistance here for all of 2020, not all of, but 2022 and 2023. And now I thought it was actually going to flip it to support there. I didn't think it was going to go this low at all. And there it is. It's down there. So can this actually recover by the end of the month? Yeah, sure. This could turn into one giant wick, and maybe price could even close above 1900 and so on. But again, this we've seen this kind of chop before when it was at the orange level. We saw it multiple times where it went below multiple times, even went to this 45-degree angle down there. So we've seen it before. It's no stranger to this kind of chop, but I do think what we're looking at now, instead of back testing the 2021 levels, we are back testing the 2018 levels right now. So this is a previous resistance zone flipping to a support right now. So I honestly think this has potential to hold. Perhaps they might want to go to this low right here, the 2020. What day is that? Yeah, February 2020 high. So perhaps it wants to go down there, maybe 1715 or so. But I want to believe that we are really close to a very good risk reward for the Russell 2000. Just based off all three of those GANs, I think we are closer to support than we are any kind of panic and freaking out. Because
you mean quote support unquote?
Yeah, quote. And we already experienced the panic, so there shouldn't be much more panic, right? Is what I'm really saying.
I'm scared. Can you say something to make me not be scared? No, be scared. Yeah, be fearful. Yeah.
Charts go up and to the right over time. So
yeah,
this is proof. There we go. That's something to not be scared.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless if it's like, but anyway, yeah, that's
unless it's like Neo or Mobileye or something. Yeah, they go down and to the right. But overall, if you're looking at growth assets, they go up and to the right, and they follow inflation. They follow everything. So I think you got to just zoom out, look at perspective from the beginning of time of all of these things, and I think the SPX illustrates it perfectly that we are at a new level that just got super extended and it needed to correct.
Yeah.
That is, but the question really remains is this going to hold, or does it need to go retest this angle, which you can see was a magnet for price the whole time? And that angle would be around 4,100, and that would be lots of pain for a lot of people and do something like that. So that's the $1 million question. But again, I think before we even break this, we need some kind of retrace back up to the resistance above before it really just wants to do. So nothing goes straight down forever unless it's 2009. But even then, it ended up going higher.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be 2009, Matt?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think even the whole idea is do you think we're way over leveraged? I guess is the question.
We could be.
Yeah, because the question is, during like the great financial crisis as well as during dot-com bubble, the reason why we went down that viciously was really because we're just way over leveraged, right? I mean, it was just an absolute insane over leverage during the dot-com bubble. You have companies that don't really produce anything having crazy valuation. And during the great financial crisis, you have all these like banks that are over leveraged. You have the financial sector is over leveraged. You have the housing is over leveraged to a ridiculous degree. People like taking loans and trying to buy, 5 or 6 houses that they can't afford, right? Do we really have that kind of behavior where everybody's just like out there and trying to like buy Neo stock, or trying to buy like Bitcoin, or trying to buy like dog with hat? I'm not really seeing that. Like I just haven't really felt that euphoria for it to happen. But
I think a lot of the leverage gets taken out of the system quickly now with these flush outs. So any of that risk gets quickly corrected.
Yeah. I wonder whether or not this is one of those situations where they're just seeing an opportunity to, they couldn't break above a FIP level and wait for months, and then they see an opportunity to deleverage, and that's kind of what we're seeing here, actually, matter of fact, like if you even look back at some of the charts that we saw before, we can get to it. You know, you want to talk about Tesla, we can always talk about that.
Yeah.
People don't seem to be that interested in Tesla anymore.
No.
But like when the indices keeps on when the indices keep on forming, you know, low Tesla is just holding its level, you know. I think that they're just kind of hitting everything one at a time. You know, that's kind of what it looks like.
But I want to go back to what I was saying before. Like, what we're seeing now is not common, right? Even during the 2000 crash, it started out as a 5%, then down 0.5% for the month, then an 8%. We didn't see a massive decline, and then we had like a retrace back up for a few months, and then in 2009 it was down 4% for the month, and 0.8%, and then 3%, and then 0.6. And then we went back up. We had a reversion to the mean right here as well. So, I mean, this is something that's not normal. The only other time that really happened was COVID, where it was down 8 and down 13. And now we are down, 6 and going to be 13 tomorrow. So, you know what? That is very similar to these equations, or these candles, I should say, from the past. And this is just not a normal bear market, right? Bear markets, they trick you. I mean, they trick you by starting out slow, like, oh, this is not nothing. This is nothing. And then it's like, boom, right? And then the .com is like, oh, this is nothing. And then boom, right? That's how they normally start. They trick you. They think everything's going to be okay, and then just pull the rug out, and then you're dead. So, yeah. But now you're just dead first, and maybe the rug will come later. Who knows? It's something that we haven't seen very, very often in life, right? What about even during let's go back even further. Let's go back to the financial crisis of 2029. So,
But you mean, wait, that's
1929.
Whoa!
So it went.
2000. Where are you from?
I'm
man?
from the future. So yeah, it started out.
The financial crash of 2029. Oh no.
Okay. So it started out at a 4% down, maybe 5, and bam, 20%. But look at this 20%, and then the next month was 13. So we had a huge crash, but look at where it retraced back up to. It went all the way back up here. So we can just do the math on the 1929. So yeah, it went down 44%, and it came back up from the bottom here, back up 45%. So even with that major crash, you had a reversion to the mean, right where all this previous resistance was, and then it crashed. So if we see something like that, where price comes up here, gets stuck, and then immediately sells off, then I would get really, really worried, right? But we haven't even had any kind of retrace at all yet. And if we are down from the top, what are we down now? We are down about 20%. Yeah. So we could go down a little bit more, but I would expect coming back to some of this zone up here before any kind of freaking out.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just kind of crazy because we're just back testing the previous all-time high back in you know, just a couple of years ago, and then, you know, the narrative is that we're gonna go lower, even though it's just so vicious. It's going back to some of like the very important fit levels that we're showing. I mean, you could always go lower. Don't get me wrong. It's more about like risk reward ratio, right? Are you gonna start seeing all these crazy charts that, you know, do these fractals that goes back all the way to, you know, 2020 or 2008, 2000, you know, or like, you know, like into year 2000, you know, like, are you going to start having those kind of fractals kind of showing up when the situation's completely different?
Actually,
so yeah, I don't know.
I just pulled up a fib. I've never tried this fib before. From the 2000 crash down to this low here. Look at that.
You said you never tried it before, but yet you maneuver.
Yeah, well, I was just, while you were talking, I was like, maybe that'll work, but that's just interesting. Yeah. That fib, what about if I go down to this low here? Yeah, that was resistance. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think judging by that crash, the initial crash right here, we are at a point that it could hold, right? Was a previous resistance, flip to support. Let's see, 2.618 from the 2000 crash. Let's go.
Yeah. And what did you think about the rug pull today? I mean, I think basically we were chatting behind the scene. We're saying, yeah, today was kind of going back to resistance, and I was seeing the VIX was kind of looking pretty bullish, and you know, I just wasn't sure about today. So, what you think about it?
On my Patreon morning call live stream, which was at 9:15 in the morning. I'm like, don't trust it. It's going right back to resistance, and sure enough, yeah, it was kind of obvious to me. Went right back up to the 1.272, right through the 100 week, and I thought it was going to get rejected for the SPY. QQQ, same thing, right to the 100 week moving average. Like, yeah, that's probably going to get rejected, and sure enough, it did. And the IWM, I was like, you know, I have no idea. So just let's not talk about it.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's important to know that whenever you have such a vicious downtrend, whenever you have these crazy bounds, like we haven't really had the true mean reversion yet, but these kinds of bounces, they kind of smell fishy.
But what if price goes all the way down and then it reverts back up to the SPX goes back up to 4,900? You know, what if that happens?
Well, I mean, that's certainly a scenario to entertain. Actually, if that happens, I think I would do what I can to like maybe add some leverage, but that would be I would not advise.
Oh, you would be like,
to do that. But
screw this, I'm going degen mode.
Well, this is a flash crash.
Yeah.
Like this is not like it says. It's not like a slow burn. They're trying to trick you and distribute. Like this is a flash crash. You know, it's
This
but I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe I'm not gonna encourage any kind of like leverage behavior. I might have to think very, very
well, you
deep
can
to myself. Sometimes doing nothing is also
you can
something,
keep the
but
leverage to yourself. You know, you don't have to tell anybody.
yeah. Yeah, I won't do any leverage. I won't do anything. I'll just sit in my
Wink,
cat
wink.
paws and and wink. Yeah, I won't do anything. Yeah, but it's getting to the point. It's like they've been hitting everything else for some stocks have been hitting for like a whole year. Some stocks have been hitting for 3 to 4 months. Some stocks have been hitting for like 6 months, and then now they're hitting everything. So you're getting to the point. It just kind of makes you wonder. What are they?
Yeah,
doing?
what are they doing? Well, we got the
Yeah.
we got the Nikkei open. Let's look at this GAN here.
Yeah, I knew that the Nikkei is open because Bitcoin went down. So
Yeah, immediately through 76,000. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, because I guess people are trying to like liquidate whatever to cover their whatever. Anyway,
yeah. So it looks like it's probably wants to backtest the green level, maybe 29,300 there. Interesting there, interesting. But is this a bearish looking chart? No, it's not. Right, it's just backtesting a level. So does this mean more pain for Bitcoin? I mean, we can talk about Bitcoin now if you want. And here's Bitcoin. It's cutting right through that 50-week moving average right now. But everything else is going back to 2021 highs. Does that mean Bitcoin needs to come back down to this 68,000, or at least the orange level of the GAN here, which is 72,000? I don't know. Right. I mean, technically, it already did all those back tests in 2021 earlier on in May, June, July 2024. So possibly. But Bitcoin, it does look like it could go lower, right? It does look like if it can't maintain this 50-week moving average, then I would expect 72,000 would be next right down there. So if 72,000 is next, then that would cause a lot of fear. But in actuality, it's still a very strong chart on the high time frame. Still very strong.
Yeah, on a higher time frame, there are a lot of charts out there that are calling the Bitcoin top. What do you think about that?
I don't see that as the case for Bitcoin. I think what we're looking at for Bitcoin, let me just pull up another chart. Do I have, oh yeah, I have that. Yeah, anyways, I'll just stick to this one. What I see for Bitcoin, let me just switch to the monthly view on this and take everything off. What I see is essentially a big up back, and it got rejected in March of 2024. Pretty long correction there, sideways, a little bit down. And I think now we're experiencing kind of the same thing that we experienced from March to maybe October 2024, where it didn't really go too much lower, right? We can just do some percentages to see actually how low it went. Yeah, down 35, 34%. And basically right now from the top here down to right there is about 30%. So yeah, back to the orange level would be the exact same percentage. So I could see something very similar to the March 24 down to the August. So don't get too scared if it does go down to the 72 or a little bit below. It's just following what it did basically since March 2024 down to September 2024. That's how many months? Like 7 months? 7 months of down to sideways. And now we have maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe a couple more months down to sideways, perhaps, before trying to continue up again. So this is nothing to panic in my eyes. This is something that we've seen numerous times before with Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, I think the 50-week moving average story is still potentially intact because it's only Tuesday. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to say like the 50-week is absolutely going to hold, but if you want to like flip over to me, I can just show that this is the 50. Sorry, this is a 20-week moving average, and the whole story of the 2015-2017 bull market is really the 20-week. You know, where it's just basically bounds. You can have these crazy weeks where it just kind of wicks below and below, but it serves as really beautiful support until all the way up to the top, right? And the last bull market around 2020, 2021, it really just touched it once and it just went to the moon. It like got completely exhausted and decided not to even bother with a back test. When it decides to do that, it just broke underneath, broke back about, back tested, make a little bit of a small higher high here, and it just plummeted, right? So the 20-week moving average didn't really seem to be that case. I think it just wanted to pump Bitcoin here real quick, and that was a little bit of a anomaly here. So far, we're not really following the 20s. I don't think that's the story. I really still think that the story is still maybe more 50, where it's been following 50 a little bit more closely, you know, even as resistance here during bear market. And now it's been kind of using as support. It's becoming a little bit more flat here, which I guess is a little bit worrisome. But again, you know, the week's only Tuesday. It could even break down underneath. I think it's possible. But so far, it seems like it just fits that 50-week, you know, a little bit more in terms of the story. Again, I'm not saying that it's going to necessarily hold. You know, you can potentially break down or whatever. Like even during this, you know, pump up here, it did kind of break down here a little bit. You know, like I'm not saying that it's not going to break down. I'm not even saying that this is necessarily going to end up like just keep on going up, right? I mean, it could even break down underneath, back test some of these levels up here above. The wake up here was 73,800 and, you know, some, you know, and change. And I think we got really close to really back testing the level because it's like, I think the low over here is like 74,420, you know. So what's another $100 to really back test the wick over here? Kind of like how this wick over here back in August 2024 kind of back tested this wick over here, you know. So what's like a little bit of like $100 or something to kind of back test the previous high level here. I would still think that this is still a high low type situation. The other thing too is look at the Ishimoku on the monthly. You did end up breaking down underneath the Tenkan, which is unfortunate. The Tenkan or the conversion line, which is the blue line here, but it did that before. It all kind of turned into a wick, you know, bull market. The blue line here, conversion line, service support, push price up higher over time, and you're allowed to break down underneath of that as long as it's just a wick, right? Who knows? Maybe it doesn't become a wick. Maybe it comes all the way back down to the kitchen level down here or the baseline level down here. And that would be a loss of momentum. That certainly would be, because that's what happened over here, where it basically just breaks down to the kitchen, to the baseline over here. It did lose a lot of momentum here, but it's still, like, usually bull market just doesn't just die from like here, it just goes down, right? Like usually you can see it trying to bounce somewhere, lose a little bit of momentum, and then maybe make another high, sometimes even a little bit like a higher high here. Then you can judge that, hey, this trend is exhausted, and I need to be a little bit worried. But right now I think we're still around the conversion here. The conversion right now is around um what is it, 79, yeah, 79,200. For Bitcoin, it's not that far away, to be honest. So we'll see. And this is a monthly chart. The month is still young. Maybe it goes all the way down here. Maybe it just finds support, and maybe it just kind of goes a lot up here from here, right? Who knows? And even if you just look at the 20-month moving average, it's still very much, very, very much down here. So um, I don't know if I can say that this bull market is over. I think I'll see a lot of different indicators out there saying that it is, but I just don't really, buy it, because they're kind of nitpicky indicators with, like, these different time frames. So as far as I'm concerned, it's higher highs and higher lows, and also in general, like, bear market doesn't start with Bitcoin dominance like at the cycle high. Like, that's just generally not how it goes.
Unless
So
all the altcoins are going to zero.
yeah, unless all the altcoins are going to zero, and then I think you're probably looking at the same thing I'm looking at. This is actually a pretty bullish structure here with altcoins. This is the others chart. You have these kinds of, like double, like this is kind of what you refer to as like a rectangle, um, like continuation type pattern. Typically, it basically just forms a little bit of rectangle here. If you're looking at the FIP levels, is actually, it's quite interesting. It's like basically just holding 0.5 here pretty decently. Now that I said that, it's probably going to plummet down to 0.382, but it's holding 0.5 here pretty decently, so I don't really think that the bear market is necessarily here, because this is still a rectangle structure that favors further bullish continuation, right? Last time I saw something like that, you can see that last time I saw something like that was right here, right? So I just, could you have a little bit of flush coming back all the way down here? There's anything's possible, but so far it's holding support, quote, quote, support. So I don't know what to necessarily make of it, but if you ask me whether or not there's like definitive evidence that the bear market is here, I'm just not sure about that. So yeah, back to you, Matt.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. All right, let's end the show right here. No, so
Well, one thing, I actually have like a small little baby GAN that I wanted to a little
oh,
baby who's a good boo boo.
oh, oh.
But yeah, somebody asked they wanna tip me or something. Just sign up for my Patreon, guys. Just do that. Yeah, you don't have to
I
you don't have to
I
do
don't
anything
get
else.
I don't get any money from his Patreon, by the way. I only get high fives, by the way. And I
Yeah,
got
only
paws.
high
He's got
fives.
human hands, and it hurts my paws. This is the kind of animal cruelty that you get. But anyway.
All right, here's a little baby GAN that actually I've been watching secretively over time. And here it is, right? It's something that broke above the square, but it's back testing it right now. And I like this one for the fact that
Oh.
every kind of level that it stopped out at the blue, stopped out at the green, stopped out the top green here, and then it stopped out right here back in April from time, and now it's back testing it. So I cannot be too bearish at this point, and that lower level is at 72,000 as well, which coincides with this level right here at 72,000. So the linear scale and the log scale right here is 72,000. So
Aw.
is that where we're going, Kat? Are we going to 72,000?
Oh, I don't know. It looks like it needs a cradle, though. That's kind of cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually, it's possible. I mean, it's just going to be basically back testing a level. But yeah, I don't know if I can really call the cycle top here. I think it's really, this cycle has just been really, really strange. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just been extremely strange.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I can't call a cycle top here, especially when there's multiple confluence of support a little bit lower, 72 there, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I just I don't see it. Right. And it doesn't matter to me. Like I've always said, even if price does go low, it doesn't matter to me because it's especially for crypto, because crypto, I'm all about cycles. And I don't think this cycle is nearly over at all.
Yeah, I think some people, like most people, when they get into the game, they only remember what happened over the last 3 months. They don't really think beyond that. And if things are bad over the last 3 months, then that's what they have kind of stuck in their head. But this is how kind of the market wants you to think as well. They want you to just remember what happened in the last 3 months. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I don't know. The last 3 months has sucked. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, it's like, oh, that was obvious. It was just overextended, but you can't really trade in hindsight. And I think the best strategy for anybody is, if you want to live a stress-free life, just don't do margin, don't do anything leveraged, don't do any of that crazy stuff. Just accumulate when there's fear, and then in the end, in the long run, you'll get rewarded. That's basically the best advice I can give. That's not financial advice, by the way, but that's what I do. I mean, I love just accumulating fear over and over again, especially if I think that something is just going to continue going higher, like Bitcoin. Like, I think this is definitely going higher in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, like, but anyway, it's just one of those things that we're here talking about the indexes. That's how bad things have gotten. Instead of talking about, like, we're here almost entire hour talking about the indexes. Like, that's how bad things have gotten, right? Like, nobody's asking for any charts for any, like, individual stocks and things like
Well,
that.
they were asking about MicroStrategy, so I guess we can talk about that. There was a weird sell-off today for MSTR, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at it, it wasn't really that weird. And I made this comparison on my Patreon too about let's pull this up, about the 50-week moving average. I was like jealous. I got jealous that Bitcoin hit the 50-week moving average right here. So that's the month. The 50-week moving average right here. So MicroStrategy had to do the same thing right here. So we got jealous. So I think it just was gonna hit that target at some point regardless. It fell short back in February and March, right? So then it just came back down there today and got it. And I think we do have a potential to still maybe even on top of that 245. If Bitcoin can stabilize on top of its 50-week, then I think MSTR will do the same exact thing. So that's what I think for MSTR. But if Bitcoin does go to 72,000, then we're probably going to see MSTR go back to this angle here in the low 200s, and maybe even back to the arc down here, which could be the 160s. We'll see. But so far, no damage has been done technically to the chart. It's actually the same zone that it has been all of February and March.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Well, the sell-off was because of Chinese tariffs. Well, what does MicroStrategy have for in regards to Chinese tariffs, right? And also, look at this sell-off for this week. It's down 19%, and Bitcoin is down for the week 2%. So it's not equal, right? It's not equal at all.
For now. No,
for now. Yeah, for now. So
for now.
So what you're saying is Bitcoin needs to go down another 19%, right? There we go, right there.
Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the market participants also, like it's Bitcoin, kind of like the Jack Nicholson movie, like it's Chinatown. Like it's Bitcoin. It does these crazy moves all the time. I think the only problem with the current market is that it does it very, very slowly and burning everybody out. I think that's what the geniuses are doing right now. It's just burning everybody out right now. So
Yeah.
Because people only remember what happened over the last 3 months. That's why. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Well, also he said, Matt, you say it moves with the market. Well, the market didn't go down 11% today, and Bitcoin didn't go down 11% today. So it's not moving with the market. It did something. It did something extraordinary by itself today that no other, besides some of these miners, that nothing else went down that much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, yeah. So I mean, now that we've got a pretty interesting lay of the land here, um, what else do you want to talk about, man? I see like somebody was asking about VIX, somebody's asking about some
Go
spread
talk about
chart.
your posting all day today.
Well, I don't have much else to say right now.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that it's. Let me see here. Yeah, I think it's overextended away from the upper Bollinger Band here on the monthly, in 2 weeks, and on the weekly. You know, I think that it's just very much overextended. It looks unsustainable, but on the other hand, it's also still got some bullish momentum on the short term. For example, here's a weekly here. Um, Initially, it came all the way back down to like the 38 zone, right? And then I find support zone over here at the top of the cloud. The baseline and conversion line over here near Katana, and then it just ends up just pushing this whole thing up again today. Which is when everybody is got kind of more excited during the day when like Nasdaq was up 4%. I was looking at like VIX going all the way back down to the cloud. I was like, oh no, But anyway, that's kind of what you're seeing on a daily. You can see the same thing. You got a nice Katana over here, and you got like the VIX come back all the way down to like 39, 38. And I was like, oh no, it's gonna get pushed up again just because it's a beautiful Katana. It's spreading. So VIX got some momentum. The thing about this kind of like crazy bullishness is that I think it's way overextended, and these things are not sustainable. So I think it's probably going to be a slow burn. You can keep having probably VIX with high volatility for days, and it's probably going to take a while for it to kind of come down. And when you have VIX like about 40 or 50, you're just going to have like these crazy volatility, which is what we're experiencing really. I don't really have much else to say. I just think that you have a gap down here, all the way down like the 20s. I think it's eventually it's going to come down. I think things are just way overextended. I don't really see this being that sustainable. But in the short term, I think that it still has the momentum, at least based on the daily chart, it still has the momentum. But even then on the daily, it's like, oh, I'm a little bit way too far from bullish, but I need to come back down here. So this, like, sometimes looking at it kind of tells you what's going to happen to the market because people are hedging or people are not hedging. Kind of give you an idea in terms of that, right? Now, the other thing I was also looking at too, there's they're called chart requests. I'm just going to like take a look at the spread here with Amazon over Tesla. The question is really looking at these kinds of spread charts. Would you buy Amazon over Tesla right now, which would rebalance, right? It's hard for me to say actually looking at this because it's just oscillating. I see like a zone over here around like 0.8 the ratio here. So this does look a little bit potential reversal pattern. So it's kind of hard for me to actually say, but it is back at resistance, right? So I think that there's a possibility where Amazon might end up not outperforming Tesla because it's a pretty important horizontal zone over here. So if I have to pick between the two, I might end up picking Tesla just because it looks like it might get back to resistance, even if it's inverted head and shoulder pattern, but it's getting close to resistance. So I favor whatever it is, not under resistance. Another one that I was asked was NVIDIA over Amazon. This basically just looked like a NVIDIA chart. There's really not much else to. It's just basically a NVIDIA chart. I think Amazon's, this, yeah, I don't. There's no difference between these two because Amazon just it's not that volatile. And then all I have to say is that NVIDIA right now needs to hold the 20-month moving average. If NVIDIA doesn't hold the 20-month moving average, it could be some rubber time, But if there's a chance for it to do that right now, so we'll see. I think when things are at support, you gotta give it like you can do it maybe kind of thing. So I kind of already like trim my exposure from Nvidia, because if you look at Nvidia over Tesla, I would prefer Tesla here at this juncture, because the Nvidia over Tesla chart has been forming mostly low highs and low lows, and I just think that you can say this might be a bull flag, but I think that this might be a trend change, because if you look at the weekly here, it's more underneath resistance here at the Ichimoku, and if you look at the weekly here, it's basically a bearish backtest after a breakdown of this horizontal zone with this ratio. So I favor, if I had to buy between the two, I favor buying Tesla over Nvidia. One more chart I wanted to show you that I think was pretty cool was the Bitcoin over Nvidia chart. If you have to choose between getting into Bitcoin or getting into Nvidia, which goes along with the QQQ, which Nvidia has been pretty heavily weighted. Well, look at what's happening here. You got basically wherever you have this chart being high, Bitcoin outperforms Nvidia. Whenever you have a chart going low, you have Bitcoin underperforming Nvidia. And right now, it looks like we got a very interesting trend change here, doesn't it? Looks like we had the 20-month moving average over here on this ratio flip from resistance up here. And it was a bear market for Bitcoin against Nvidia, actually, for about 3 years, right? I mean, really 4 years. Like, Nvidia just got outperformed Bitcoin for like almost 4 years now. Well, guess what's happening right now? The 20-month moving average right now is being flipped from negative sloping resistance here to flat to more positive sloping here, right? And it looks like we might be bucking the trend. Looks like maybe Bitcoin might end up outperforming Nvidia moving forward, right? Just looking at that trend change. So I just thought that was pretty, interesting in terms of that. If you're one of those folks that like never really want to leave the market, they want to be in it no matter if it crashes or not. If you want to just kind of allocate your money to the right way, like I'm kind of looking into, like maybe more Bitcoin related kind of thing. So this is a pretty interesting chart to me. Like even if you look at MSTR over Nvidia, like I can't. It's just MSTR just looked more bullish than Nvidia. So it's just one of those things that if you want to rotate, you want to see what the market is doing. That's kind of what's happening in my view. Is that maybe Bitcoin related asset maybe holding pretty well, and you can see it on the trend, you can see it on the spread. So maybe that's also a part of the reason why I don't think Bitcoin bull market is necessarily over, because it just seems like money might be rotating into it. I could be a complete fool, and all these indicators can be like complete Boronic, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. That's kind of what I'm going by. So I'm sticking with it for now. Yeah.
I agree. Should we do Tesla next? A lot of people are talking about it right now.
You mean like a lot of people are not talking about it? No, I guess they're all asking.
Yeah, everybody wants a piece of the Tesla, but they hate it when it corrects. They hate it.
Well, but look, but it's underneath the 200-day moving average. I mean, like that's not good, right? Like oh, and it's also underneath the 200-week moving average. That's not good, right? Because it's never overextend underneath the 200-week moving average before. It's never done that before. So I got a question to ask me about that. I'm like, I don't even know like what to say, because it's just basically a little bit meaningless to me. It's also one of those things. I can look at the Ichimoku cloud here. I like to look at the 2-week Ichimoku cloud here for Tesla, because of how the 2-week Ichimoku cloud has served as resistance for like 2 or 3 years straight. You can see how it got rejected here, here, pushes through, and decided to backtest the cloud again, right? Oh man, this backtest has been extremely brutal. Pushes through some decent volume, but then just have some capitulation, come back down to the cloud. So as far as I'm concerned, these quote support levels, unquote, may hold or may not hold. You can decide whatever you want to do. If you don't believe in support levels because they can always go lower, and they do sometimes, then you can buy resistance. That's fine. Buy momentum. That's fine too. Whatever you want to do. But imagine, and I can sing the John Lennon song, but I'm tired now. But imagine if the month is still early, and this whole thing right here is a wick. Then you got a nice tweezer bottom right into the Ichimoku cloud, right? Imagine it. I don't know if it's going to be or not, but I also think that right now we're seeing some, pretty interesting confluence between what we're seeing here compared to what we're seeing on the last cycle before it ran up. I still think this to be probably true, although again, I don't have any guarantees that it's going to work out just exactly the same way. But you broke out during this market over here from like 2014. This lasted for like 5 freaking years, right? 2014, 2019, broke above this trend line over here, and you thought it was just going to moon, but no, decided to 2 or 3 years later come back down to touch the bottom of the cloud over here, and backtest the diagonal trend line over here, right? How brutal was that? Well, we kind of did that here in 6 months, right? Broke through this trend line over here. This trend line actually lasts longer than this one over here. Resistance, 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 breakthrough, support, right? So this is not really like, based on technical analysis, it's not really a bearish thing, but again, it's all about probability. It's not about, deterministic, oh, this is the bottom over here, so you buy TSLA. I'm not on margin, I'm not saying that at all, because the market makers, they see these things. They see me like posting charts, like I never thought I was that influential, but now I'm actually starting to be like a little bit more quiet about like exact levels, because I don't want outcomes to pick up things just in case. But it's basically just back testing some of these levels over here. Is not really showing any unusual behavior that I'm aware of. But to a lot of people, whenever it goes from like the 480s all the way down to the 2 teens, that's a bear market, right? When the reality is that during COVID, it went from $64 all the way down to like $23, right? And that's still a bull market, right? So I don't know, like you can talk about these like percentages down. The same thing people talking about Dogecoin, yet it's down so many percent. But to me, that's meaningless, because it depends on how volatile the asset is, depending on what the beta that asset is going to give you. So for something that's like so exponential to the upside and to the downside, I think that it's meaningless to just talk about, oh, it's down like 60, 70%, it's a bear market. I think it's very meaningless to do that. With something exponential like this, I usually chart on log scale, and a lot of people may not be able to tolerate the volatility of what I'm charting. But it doesn't look like the market structure is not broken. So I'm not going to be like that's scared about Tesla. Anyway, done talking. Go for it, man.
Yeah, there's only 2 things I'm really watching for Tesla at the moment, and essentially it's this GAN right here. And let me just talk about the GAN first. I'll just take off the fib. But essentially it's back below this level, but it's done that before, right? This angle right here. It's still in the zone of the market symmetry, because we've seen it before back on earnings, pre-earnings, I should say, in 2024 of April. It dipped massively below that angle right here, and then it recovered nicely. So we're at a point where there is more volatility, and it's below again, but I still think there is going to be an opportunity to get back above this zone here. Maybe not this week, maybe next week, maybe the week after, right? We'll see if it can. But I think just following the trend, every time, even during COVID, it got below that angle and stayed below it for 4 weeks in a row, and then recovered, right? We've seen it do that many times in the past, and I think just looking at this market symmetry, that it does have the potential to go higher and fix this imbalance, I guess I would say, and close back above. And the other thing I'm looking at is when I pull up the fib here and I just go to the linear scale right here, it's still holding this 382 to 221.26, right? And we have been holding this ever since it crashed all the way down and hit it the first time, right? Back on March 11th, March 13th, or whatever that day that was. It hit there and closed above, closed above, closed above, closed above, still above, right? 221.26. We closed today at 221.86. So this is something that actually is catching my eye. I do like how it's stabilizing on top of this zone right now. So this is really interesting to me. And if it can continue to hold, then I think we can actually recover some of the previous losses that we've had, right? So just buying time until it gets more bullish. But yeah, like Kat said, it's not really breaking lower, especially not even going lower than this October 24 low right now. It's still holding that. It's kind of like a big demand zone right there. So just got to give it time on this one. But in the future, I think it's still going to be very explosive and surpass people's expectations.
You mean to the downside?
Yeah, it's probably going to go down to 0, maybe negative 100. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because yeah, it's you just want to see a Tesla car and just want to vandalize it. Apparently, people do that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the first thing I want to do. Like, oh my god, gotta get my keys out. Gotta key it.
Oh man,
can't control myself.
Yeah, that's Tesla for you. Any you want to do Palantir? You want to take a look at that junk? That overvalued junk. You want to take a look at that?
Yeah, let's go look at this piece of trash right here.
Yeah.
So this piece of trash right here is, yeah, so annoying. God, just straight up and to the right. I hate it. But here we are right now where it's actually flipping support to resistance. This is the reality.
Oh, no.
We are at a point where the baseline right here, also 2 weeks in a row, got rejected, came back down. Also 2 weeks in a row, we're below this 1.2727813, and we're still below. Also 2 weeks in a row, we're still battling this blue GAN level right here. So if all three of these continue to be resistance, then is it going to go down to the 60s again, the low 60s? Maybe it it hit that blue arc back on January 13th, 2025. So if it went back down to retest this arc, it would be at 61, maybe $60, depending on time. So if it really wants to reject this zone, then perhaps it'll gravitate down this way towards the cloud, towards the angle, towards the arc down here at some point, maybe $58, $60, and then probably go. If it really is going to get rejected, that's probably the bear case, I think, for Palantir. But the bull case still exists of maybe this week can close back above. Maybe this month is just going to be a big liquidity event, and we can go to the monthly chart. And it opened the monthly candle way up here at 83. No, sorry, way down here at 83, 89. So it even opened the monthly candle above the blue level of the GAN. So perhaps this has potential to maintain, right? Perhaps it has potential to maintain. So I'm not too concerned. Oh, wait, no, it did open up here. Yeah, it opened up underneath the arc. Sorry. I'm getting my candles backwards here. It's dyslexia. But yeah, it opened up here and it came back down and is still kind of holding this zone. So this month already went down to the baseline, already went down to the conversion line on the monthly chart. So it has potential to just turn everything to a wick and just maintain bullish. But the weekly chart is kind of telling that maybe it's hitting resistance pretty strongly right now with all of these wicks. So that's something to pay attention to. And I think if you're looking at levels, watch the 78.13. See if price can actually start closing above that.
Nice. Did you talk about the monthly conversion and base?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Sorry. Guess I was spacing out there a little bit.
No problem. You can talk.
You can talk about resistance. I was like, not again. No.
Not again. It's a common theme.
It's a common theme. Yeah. Now you got like all these weekly support turn resistance. It's unfortunate it's happening, but yeah, got a few things to show you. This is a spread chart. Palantir over QQQ looks pretty bullish, but again, it's not a fair comparison because QQQ just kind of went down to the toilet. Look at it, it had a nice bullish band. Like, look how it got rejected at 1.272 log fib. Just kind of hovering out here, trying to wait for bullish band up to push up, so you can continue to outperform the QQQ. Like bullish band's down here. It looks like Palantir just wants to keep on, outperforming the indexes here. right? I mean, I could do SPY, it's the same thing, you know, like it's not really any difference here. Let's do Palantir over Tesla. Interesting. Huh. Okay. So it's just very, very bullish against Tesla. Like that's just absolutely incredible chart, right? Let's do Palantir over Nvidia. Looks like the bull trend of Palantir against Nvidia is just kind of barely getting started here. Let's see, what else do you want to look at? Palantir over Bitcoin? I don't know if Palantir is looking better than Bitcoin, but maybe Bitcoin is going to gain a little bit of momentum here in the short term. I mean, like I think that look at like other very heavy retail stocks. Palantir over Robinhood looks like a pretty decent cup here. Bounce all the 20-month moving average. Let's say once you keep going. Let's look at the long investors' favorite stock and see how Palantir is stacking against that. Oh, guess what? It's kind of forming a very nice cup over here. Maybe a little bit of a, like a little bit of a hand over here. It looks like it wants to continue to break up above because it just back tested 20. It looks like it wants to expand Bollinger Band and potentially outperform him moving forward, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. Just like, the valuation is high, but for some reason it's holding strong. Is it going to keep holding strong? I don't know, but it's. I think that's at some point you're going to have to, just maybe follow the price action. I think it is hitting some weekly flipping things from support to resistance, but the monthly still look pretty decent. So I don't know. I mean, it could go all the way back down to the 60s again. It already did that. Like, it touched the baseline like perfectly. It's just so beautiful. But who knows how long this shenanigan is going to happen? Who knows whether or not like QQ is going to go down another like 5-10%, and then next thing Palantir goes back down another 10-15% again. Who knows, right? So I'm just showing you what I'm seeing here. So I'm still holding Palantir. I'm not selling. That's
what about Palantir versus XRP?
Oh man, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Actually, look at that big giant god candle for XRP. Yeah. So guess what though? Yeah, it's hitting some monthly cloud resistance here. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's very, very interesting. Let me see. Actually, if I do XRP over Palantir, it might give me a better chart here. It's forming a bull flag. Yeah. Yeah, but it's losing the 20-month moving average though, so I don't know. A little bit iffy there. Well, I should do XRP USD over Palantir. It's probably gonna give me a better chart. Yeah, I don't know. I might be losing some momentum against Palantir. It's bringing underneath the 20.
No.
Yeah, but I think these kind of comparison charts are pretty interesting. It doesn't necessarily fit what the narratives are out there in terms of what people are saying about Palantir. Anyway.
Well, even XRP is flipping support to resistance now too. So interesting to watch.
Yeah, XRP is losing. I'm gonna let you do it. I'm not gonna do XRP.
No. Oh, you hate XRP, huh?
No, I don't hate it. It's just like it's not my cup of tea,
Why? Because it's a competitor to everything?
No, like the way I see it, like, some people like bestiality. I don't, I mean, like, it's just one of those things that is your preferences, man. I mean, I don't want any animals to get hurt. I prefer you not to. I'll probably report your ass, but like, it's, so I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm sorry.
You just don't like bullish charts. I get it. Yeah.
Well, take it away. Show your bullish chart. There you go. Oh, well, it's the resistance. Oh,
yeah. Man. So it lost the baseline last week, and it flipped it to resistance this week. So that's kind of why we're seeing more pressure on here. But a couple of things. If we just put on the fib retrace level here, it did hit the 786 for the first time ever, really, since it broke out. So that's a back test right here of the April 2021, May 2021 highs. So that's a good thing. I mean, back testing that, and so far it's a big wick. I think that's a nice development. But what we got to really pay attention to is that it's stuck under resistance now. So this could be some short-term loss of momentum, right? That 50-week moving average is still way down there. 131, is it going to get there? I don't know, but I think what we're going to look at now is probably just maybe some weeks of consolidation. Now, maybe lower to down, right? I think that's kind of the reality. But I do have a GAN for this one too. And the GAN square here, I'll take off the fib channels here, or take off the fib retracement and everything else. And yeah, I just want to show you it's actually right at the blue GAN level right now, right? Something that was resistance in the past as well. And it was kind of was like a blow off top zone for the December 2021 level as well. Sorry, December 2017 level. And the orange level was a perfect kind of resistance and a breakout zone. So the symmetry of this all does make a lot of sense, and it is maintaining that a lot. If it did want to go back down to this angle right here, that would be maybe around 150. Yeah, maybe 152, 153. So that could be a potential where it wants to backtest down there, maybe wick below it into the 140s. I don't know. And in fact, if it did go to the 140s, then that could even be a huge liquidation event that would be back down to the 50-week moving average right there at the 131. So we'll see. But one of the more bullish charts still, it's one of the last ones that still held its weekly baseline until last week. And I think what I'm going to be looking at the most now is just this blue level. That's around 180. Maybe 179, 180, kind of around current price, right? So if this can stabilize on top of it and not really start to close weekly candles below it, then I think this can be okay, because that fib level that I showed you of the previous 2021 high did get hit perfectly and it bounced. So still very bullish, but lots of momentum, guys, which means patience.
Yeah, I mean, do you really think? First of all, I have two things to say. First, we don't really condone bestiality. I'm sorry, we're not Disney. We're not going to do that. So no animals are harmed. We're not that company. So don't worry about it. Second, I don't think Will Chamberlain hit 20,000 right away. Right, he's gonna take some break. He's gonna eat some crackers. Like he's gonna, he just can't do it. Sometimes
Not
you
in
just
one
get
day,
tired.
yeah. Not in one
Not
day.
in
Or
one day.
1 week. Yeah.
Or in 1 week, or in 3 months. Like you just
Or
need
in
some
a
time.
year. I would challenge a year. There's only 365 days in a year. So
That's true, right? So like you can't, like, what if he gets sick? I mean, like, you gotta have some personal days. Anyway, you want to do a speed run here? I think we got maybe like 10 different chart requests. You want to flip it to me and I just knock them out?
yeah, go ahead and knock them out and about.
Oh yeah, somebody asked me about China ADR. I don't know what that is. So I'm just gonna look at the Hang Seng Index here. I mean, you already knew that things are getting a little bit overextended here anyway, because if you're looking at the Fibonacci level, you can see that it was hitting 0.618 right earlier, which is going to be a very, very important resistance level. And if it breaks about 0.618, there's a good chance to get to some really, really higher level up above. So I think that it probably just needed to take a break over here. It's not going to get over here for the first time. So guess what happened? It got rejected here, had a trees on top over here, came back down, back tested 0.382 over here, is holding pretty perfectly. Also together, the psychological level of 20,000, which is, hey, you know what? It's Will Chamberlain's number. Actually, I guess the Hang Seng Index is outperforming Will Chamberlain, which is amazing, by the way. But it's doing an amazing back test here. Now, is it holding the Ichimoku? It's holding the baseline over here pretty decently. Initially, a little bit of false breakout above the Ichimoku cloud, but it kind of came back, broke down a cloud, couldn't hold the bottom of the cloud, couldn't hold the Tenkin over here, but decided to go back over here to the Kitchen over here. So far, is holding it pretty perfectly. Is it still a bull trend? It still looks like a bull trend, because the bullish band on the monthly is expanding over the 20-month moving average. Right here, still pointing up over here. Does it have to come back down to the 20-month moving average? I don't think so. I still think this is a pretty decent bullish chart. I think it's already quite corrected enough already. We can look at the, not BAB. I don't know what BAB is. Looking at Alibaba. Basically, it's doing a very, very similar thing, except that it basically hit the 0.5 instead of the 0.618. It's coming back down here, testing horizontal level here, psychological level here around $100. That's kind of what it's doing. It did break down underneath the Tenkin Kitchen over here, but it did also get rejected over cloud here. So it's not as, based on fit level, it's not as bullish compared to the Hang Seng Index in general, but it's still pretty decent. Do I think it's coming back all the way down here? Probably not. I did expect it to minimally go back to 110, 110, somewhere around there. It did break down underneath, and I also speculated that it could go down to like 100. I thought that was a little bit less likely, but no, decided to just do that in just 1 week. Hey, these things happen, but guess what? It's expected. These are technical analysis levels that are not entirely unexpected, right? So we're kind of looking at what we're kind of looking at. Somebody asked about Mara. I've decided to, this one thing is like, if I chart levels, it like this, miners are just naughty, because I guess they're just really lower liquidity. So it's really hard to like actually chart exact levels. So what I decided to do is actually look at volume and try to see what they do. I'm trying to look at volume imbalances to see whether or not we're at a juncture where they're actually buying behind the scene. Maybe they're doing it through dark pool, maybe doing some other financial instruments, things like that. You can see a lot of volume imbalances here with unbalanced volume here on the weekly, kind of like it did over here on the last dump over here. We have a bullish divergence with unbalanced volume, which eventually end up causing a pretty decent gain over here. I think we're seeing a very similar thing here where you have a big dump over here, but you have a lot of imbalances here on the unbalanced volume. So it does make me wonder whether there's a lot of buying pressure behind the scene. I'm just going to leave it as that because I call about all kinds of crazy targets, but none of that really means anything. Somebody asked about AMD. What do I think about AMD? AMD is raw. It just keeps on breaking level after level. If I look at a monthly over here, and I think it's important to look at the volume over here too, because even the price plummet over there, unbalanced volume actually is kind of going flat here. It didn't really do anything. But you also input the volume over here. You can see how the entire year AMD's just been going down on declining volume. At some point, the further it goes, the better risk reward ratio it is. But the problem is it broke underneath the monthly Ichimoku cloud. Initially, I thought, hey, maybe it'll hold. But I was also a little bit skeptical. That's why I didn't really go in AMD. The reason why is because I also saw a bullish band here. On the lower part here, it seems to be expanding down. There's potentially for it to hit the lower bullish band. That's exactly what it's doing right now. And it's also kind of getting to the horizontal level over here too. You see how this is previous resistance over here, is previous support, is looking back to that brutalizingly going back to that level to back test that, which is just absolutely insane. Now, it is a falling knife. Where do you catch it? You can catch it right at the lower bullish band on the monthly. I think it's fine, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be the bottom. But it's definitely better than trying to catch up here. I'm probably going to end up staying away from this thing. Snow. Somebody asked about snow. What do I think about snow? I think that it's just been kind of going sideways here. I don't have much to say. Maybe this is the spring. If this is like a Y call thing, it could very well be. But basically got rejected with 0.382 and had to come back to some fit level support. It's just basically range bound doing nothing. You need some volume to come in before it really push out of here. It's starting to look a little bit better over time because the longer you kind of go sideways, or your 20 moving average is going to be a little bit more flat, a little bit more sideways over here. But guess what? You're getting rejected at the 20-month moving average. You also get rejected at 0.236 here, so you get a little more resistance above than you do have support. You also get rejected at a Tenkan over here on the monthly. So far it's not really a favorable chart. It's still leaning a little bit more bearish. You can see it's also underneath the Ichimoku cloud. It broke down underneath to try and get back above, but we'll see whether or not the week is able to hold there. I'm not really that excited about it. What do I think about socks? I think socks sucks. Like I can't say anything about it. It went all the way from like 70 bucks all the way down to single digits. It's just absolutely brutal, right? I don't have anything else to say. This is still a falling knife. I don't have
double bottom maybe coming soon. Huh?
Double top, double bottom. Maybe this is a rectangle. I don't know. But I can't guarantee you this is the bottom. I just can't. But look at how huge volume over here too. So you do have capitulation here. You want to try to catch a falling knife. That's usually one of the things I look for to try to catch a falling knife, is to see like capitulation volume. I like to see 2 or 3 capitulation volume peaks over here. So maybe if it's your cup of tea, you can do that. It's also hitting low Bollinger Band over here too, so maybe you can consider getting into it if you want to, but I just don't. That is just not my cup of tea right now, trying to catch this falling knife. I don't really want to do that.
I mean, 3x leverage is kind of insane too.
Yeah, like I did 2x. I have like this USD thing, which is the semiconductor. Even that, like I started scaling up around like the 60s and 50s and 60s. So like I didn't really ride the trend down. I start rotating other stuff. I mean, the other stuff also went down like 10, 20% or whatever, but I just find the risk reward ratio just wasn't really there for that. So I end up escaping from that, thankfully. Honeywell. Oh man, I haven't looked at this thing for a while. I mean, I can just put up some indicators here. It's just been oscillating sideways, punching into the cloud here. I don't really have much to say. Let me see where the weekly here is under the cloud over here. The 2 week is under cloud. On the monthly, it's just in space. I don't really have much else to really say about it. The 20-month moving average is underneath of it, but it's getting a little bit closer to lower Bollinger Band. So maybe that's kind of the area where you're going to find support there. Who knows? But I'm not. It's just going sideways. I don't have much else to really say about that. PayPal. It's been very, very painful. Initially, I really thought that it was going to end up holding 20-month moving average, but no, end up breaking underneath of that. Now 20-month average is now resistance. It's also breaking underneath the Tenkan Kijun over here. It doesn't really matter. You have bullish crossover here because price is currently underneath both the Tenkan Kijun. But guess what? The selling volume seems to be exhausting a little bit. The month's too early though, so you might have a little bit more volume here, but it just looks absolutely painful. When I see something like that, do I want to get in? Well, not necessarily. I think it's holding a pretty decent horizontal zone over here, over the last year or so. But I always worry about these things going back to the low Bollinger Band here. You saw the other chart, they did that. So I'm going to stay away from PayPal. No thanks. But if fundamentally speaking, I think it's actually probably good reward ratio. But there's no interest in PayPal. I don't know why. Robinhood did break down underneath the Tenkan and Kishin, unfortunately, on the monthly here. They do have a potential for it to drop all the way down to 24, 25 bucks at a rising 20-month moving average, as well as this horizontal zone over here. That's always a possibility. I don't think it necessarily has to do that, but that's always a possibility for it to do that, right? Because it's still holding the 0.618. After it break through the 0.618, slice it through butter, it got rejected all the way up to 0.886. They didn't really care. It's burning your covered calls already up there. And guess what? Now that you're extremely bullish up here, let's go ahead and pull your rug on you and bring you down here. And now that you're extremely bearish, maybe we're trying to burn your puts here too, right at 0.618, because it's stuck in a golden pocket over here. And where everything's stuck in the golden pocket between 0.76, 0.618, it's not necessarily bearish. Of course, things can always break down, but so far it's still holding that level of support. So I'm not really going to be, too bearish about it. We'll see. We'll see. It's still on 0.618. So if it doesn't, then 0.5 is going to be a pretty, very strong support zone. I might even consider scaling in, 0.5. XOM and then OXY, I think those are the last two here. I'm not going to go through everything. XOM, I've never really been that bullish when I'm looking at this. This looks a little bit more like distribution to me. I get scared when I look at something like that. When I look at something that's been rising that strongly, and next thing you know, it's just kind of turned flat here and it's broken down and the 20-month moving average, broken down from the previous cycle high here, and it's touching a low Bollinger Band here. I mean, if you want to scale, if you like this your cup of tea, then maybe this is a good area to do that. But I think it might end up come back here to the 20-month moving average, get rejected, and end up going down lower. That's the risk, right? So I don't really like a chart like this. And Oxy, I'm not gonna, when I think of Oxy, I think of moron, and then I also think of Warren Buffett. So that's not. That's mean. He's not a moron. He's a very smart guy. It broke down. It's like it basically. It looks like a falling knife, man. Bollinger Band expansion, 20-month range going down. I never was a big fan of Oxy, so I don't have much else to say about it. Did I miss anything, man?
I don't think so. Maybe. Wait, so SOFI, Rocket Lab, Archer, ECL.
What? Wait,
you missed
SOFI,
Rocket Lab, Archer.
Yeah, SOFI not much. I mean, it's kind of hitting. It's trying to hold a 20-month moving average. Sometimes it didn't break underneath it. It doesn't really matter. It's high, low type situation. So I don't really care that much. If anything, if you look at the Ichimoku on weekly, it's just basically break out Ichimoku and just back testing right now. The cloud is thin. It could always break down, but overall, it's still high, low type situation. Like that doesn't really bother me that much. Archer Aviation, it's basically, whoa, this is a really busy chart over here. Let's get rid of all that stuff here. Well, maybe not, because I actually want some of this stuff here. Let me get rid of the Ichimoku and the Gand. And let's just look at a fit level. If you look at a fit level, it's back to 0.5 from the previous all-time high to low, right? It's holding that level pretty decent. It's stuck in range between 0.5 and 0.618. Initially, you're just stuck in a willing pocket, but no, it decided to come back down and grab some liquidity back to this zone over here. See how important it was over here as previous resistance, see previous support over here. So it's just kind of hanging out around there. I think hopefully it's going to find support over here. If it does, then it needs to challenge some pretty important fit levels here above, and might even get stuck in this range over here a little bit longer before going up higher. Do I think it's going to break down underneath and go to 0.382? It's always possible, but the volume is really kind of declining. I don't think that's a very likely scenario. Sorry, what else?
ECL.
Ecolab. No idea what it is.
Let's
look at it.
And Rocket Lab next.
Okay. It's getting close to 20-month moving average. It's losing momentum. It's got a huge momentum upside. You can see that it's losing momentum here just because even though it's running higher highs, but it's kind of like a little bit sloping here. Because of this, it got tired, come back down, back test to 20 right now. See where it holds by the end of the month. If not, they can come down all the way to like the 2 teens. That's always a possibility. But it's always hard to say what the level is going to be because it's finding a pretty decent horizontal support zone over here. That's still holding right now. So, and also a rising 20, it might end up holding and just keep going up a lot higher, just kind of like what NVIDIA is doing, right? You remember what I was talking about NVIDIA it was kind of doing that, basically doing very similar things. Let's see if the 20 holds. I don't have much else to say about it. Rocket Lab is still holding the previous high over here, which is absolutely incredible. Got all these wicks down here below, which tells you got a pretty decent demand zone down here in the mid-teens, right? The 20-month moving average is all the way down here, but I don't really think this is nice to go back down. It did break down underneath the thing in the kitchen here on the monthly and on the 2-week. And on the weekly, here is a potential for it to hit the cloud here, maybe have some friction over here. Met loves the friction, and then just kind of bounce up from there if it decides to do that. I mean, it can always break down lower, but like I think there's a pretty decent demand zone here, which is insane. Because the price went all the way from like $3 to the 30s, and it's just correcting down to like to the teens. And I think it's finding some pretty decent support after this much needed correction to get you out of the stock. Is also hitting a lower bullish trend here on the weekly too. Like part of the reason why it doesn't stocks just don't plummet all the way down is because you have these kind of support levels that happens when you have a big giant parabolic move. Like sometimes you get some pretty decent support levels here. So that's it, right? Oh, TIGR. Okay, one more. Fine.
TIGR.
Yeah. I don't really have much else to say about it. I think that it's still kind of stuck in range. I'm actually glad that it hasn't pumped yet. I'm like, I don't feel like people are like, what are you talking about? It like went up to like $9. I'm actually glad that it hasn't pumped yet. It got rejected here at a conversion, right? And the baseline on monthly, which is not unexpected. And also it hadn't really had that full bullish expansion to go like much higher yet. You see the entire time it wants to go higher, but it just couldn't. A lot of times you see these wicks up here, you're kind of like worried, are you distributing? But no, in this particular case, it just keeps on making highs here, and it's just trying to push the Bollinger Band expansion, So this is still a bull trend. Coming back down close to 0.382 here, to me is a buy zone. I think this is not, considering the greater Chinese market, I just showed you, what the Hang Seng was doing, and this is actually a pretty decent area here. Can it break down further? Yeah, I can always go down to the 5s down here, but like I wouldn't necessarily count on it because so far I just think that this is still a bull trend. I don't really have like that. This is still a bull trend. I don't have much else to say about it. It's like an early bull trend kind of look to it. If it comes back down to the horizontal zone and back to the 20-month moving average, back to the 5s, oh man, like that's my cost average is around 7. That's where it is at right now, which is where price is currently right now. So I don't really care. Oh man, you guys just keep doing this to me.
Piling them on there.
You guys just keep doing it because I don't do a live stream anymore. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have much else to say. It's a falling knife. A lot of these like RG type stocks are not doing well. I also own like RXRX, and it's also not doing well. It just keeps on forming lower low, and it's a falling knife. I don't have much else to say. The only saving grace potentially is this is some kind of Y-cop thing, and this is a spring. That's really the only saving grace I have, because otherwise it's underneath all the support levels down here below. It's a falling knife. Is one of those falling knife that actually looks like it's a chance. You got some capitulation here maybe, but your price bounce up. I don't really see much like capitulation volume necessarily. It just looks like it wants to just slow burn down. So yeah, I probably wouldn't put any money onto this thing unless you want to catch a falling knife. I can't guarantee you where the bottom is going to be for that. So. Whee!
Woohoo!
All right. Any last words?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Afraid of what exactly?
The market.
Oh,
okay. The market's your enemy.
Oh no. No, I'm more afraid of Ethereum than anything, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even talk about Ethereum. Oh well, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not fine, but what else are you gonna do?
I think I posted a while ago that I expected 1300, and that was the destination it wanted to go. So
yeah, I don't have any question like in terms of what it wants to do anymore. Like it's bleeding, and it's bleeding until it's not. So that's all I gotta say. I think this also builds confidence, because if it keeps bleeding, then Bitcoin dominance keeps on going up. That actually gives me more confidence that the cycle's not over yet, which is kind of like oxymoron. But like if my ETH bag has to sacrifice, then so be it. But
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. I don't have much
No,
else to say.
I just think we're at a point where things should start to find stability. And if they don't, that could just mean there could be an even more violent spring back to the mean, back to the
Yeah.
average. So no matter what, I think what we're going to see eventually is some kind of rip your face off rally that'll give a lot of people an opportunity to exit if they choose to. So who knows when that will happen, but I think we are closer to it than we are not.
Yeah, even from previous crash like COVID, you have these big giant wicks. Like I'm really not seeing that. It's just absolutely insane. It's at some point it's going to retrace back to the mean. Like this is not sustainable, and the mean for Nasdaq's actually like closer to like 19,000.
Well,
So
wait, show the daily chart, Bollinger Band. I'm really curious how far extended that is now.
actually, is looking okay. I think maybe the
Okay.
volatility is actually got it covered up now.
Yeah.
Because it's actually okay, but it's just it's still pretty insane. It just keeps on like dragging outside up like little Bollinger Band. It just keeps on doing that. Yeah, on the daily it did retrace back to the mean on the daily, but in general
Okay.
these crashes they do like to retrace back to the mean in general. And if they don't, usually it's more of a V-shaped than anything. If they do, that's when it might be a slow burn crash. So right now, I think it's more of like a flash crash, like in 2018, like in COVID, like in 2015, 2016. It's not like the great financial crisis, like you have these kind of slow burn before going down. Like it's just not like that. So anyway, woohoo!
Yep. Well,
Yeah,
until next time, until next Tuesday.
yeah,
Good luck, everybody. Try not to lose any sleep tonight. I know it's going to be a probably bloody morning, but there is hope out there still.
yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. That's all I gotta say. Whatever that
All
means.
right.
All right,
All right.
man. Take care. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.